Here is the voice of the working class, Rick Smith.
And welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is the Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here today on the big program. Lots to get to, lots to talk about. Glaring headline, glaring, bold headline. Film Academy condemns Will Smith. That's right. The Academy of Motion Pictures, Arts, and Sciences condemns Will Smith's slapping of Chris Rock at the Oscars. Says it's exploring further consequences. It condemns it in the strongest way possible with language. Sorry, bad. How brave of them. How courageous. Honestly, I didn't want to start with this because I don't really care. I didn't watch the Oscars. It's not my thing. But it has gotten so much attention. It is literally everywhere. Everyone has to have a point of view. Everyone has to have an opinion. Everyone has to have a take. Got to have your hot take. And I've got a couple. One, why did Will Smith get to go home? The first part of it is what privilege? I mean, we talk about privilege in this society. The privilege is you get to march up on a stage, slap somebody on national television, and then go back to your seat and yell obscenities. That's privilege. Because I'll tell you, if you did that, you would get a shiny set of bracelets. Now, if it were, Will Smith were to come and slap me, then I'd be rich, because that would be my retirement. Or we would be rolling around in the dirt. Now, do I understand a man standing up for his woman? Absolutely, I most certainly do. Maybe Ted Cruz could take a lesson. Maybe tomorrow in the Senate, Ted Cruz is going to try and slap an 80-year-old senator. Who knows? I'm sure he would swing and miss, but he may try. But hey, I get the going to stand by your woman thing. I get that. But you know what a real man does? He meets Chris afterwards. Didn't need the big production. Didn't need that. And I think Howard Stern is right. Had that been The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, that wouldn't have happened. Had that been someone else who would have slapped him back, I think that goes a little different. So I think a bit of bullying there. So that's my take on it. My first take on it is first, he got to go home. That doesn't happen. Doesn't happen to you and me. Doesn't happen to working people. That doesn't happen to average everyday people. That tells me that he's in the club. There's the big club, and you and I, we ain't in the big club. He's wealthy enough and powerful enough to be able to get away with literally slapping someone on television and going back to his seat, finishing his meal, and being able to go home at the end of the night. And probably not going to be any repercussion down the road. I'm sure the Academy will have a harshly worded statement coming because they're brave. Remember, they condemn this in the harshest way possible. But here at the end of it, do you know who cares less about this than I do? No one. So that's the end of it. I'm done with that. I don't care if Will Smith is a Scientologist. Tired of hearing about that. I don't care. I wish we would spend that kind of time and energy that I saw all over Twitter and social media. I wish we would spend that kind of energy on talking about how we feed hungry children, how we find homes for homeless veterans, how we solve the problems that we really do have. And as a country, we really do have some major problems. Will Smith, really not one of them. Let him be who he... And I didn't see the movie. I don't know King Lear, was it? King Howard? Didn't see it. I thought his apology was pretty lame. I was in character. I guess that was the argument. He was the daughter, the two tennis players' father, I guess, and he was protective, and this was, I'm not buying it. Not at all. So there you go. Yeah, I've already said enough. Already said enough. Interesting bit coming out of the Russia war. Evidently, and this is the funny part, because remember, the justification for going into Ukraine was got to get rid of the Nazis. Evidently, according to the Financial Times, a newspaper that I actually believe does real journalism, they are saying that Russia is no longer requesting Ukraine denazify because, well, it's not that big of a deal. Does everyone have a Nazi problem? Yeah, we've got one here. We've got a couple here. Are they a problem? They're a pest. I don't know, a problem. They're a pest. I don't know that they're worth going and blowing up major cities, and I don't know that they're worth killing thousands of people and displacing millions. And this is interesting because it's now not even part of the negotiations anymore. But I thought it was the central tenet. I thought it was the reason. I thought it was why it had to happen. Had to get the Nazis. Had to get the Nazis because Ukraine was evidently, according to what we were told at the beginning, nothing but Nazis. Now, interestingly enough, America wants Joe Biden to be tougher on Russia. The latest poll, the latest AP NORC poll out, finds 56% of us believe Joe Biden needs to be tougher. He's not being tough enough, while 55% say they believe U.S. should sanction Russia as effectively as possible, even if it hurts the U.S. economy, which I find interesting. Means we're willing to sacrifice a little bit. That's a good thing. Until we sacrifice, and then we're going to go, Joe Biden did this. You see how that works? But I find interesting over the weekend, Joe Biden did make a little gaffe, a little slip, a little bit. And I don't even think it was really a gaffe so much as it's one of those things where you go, yeah, I don't think he can remain in power. I don't think Putin can stay in power after this. I think at some point, got to go. And that's something hopefully the Russian people will go, yeah, you got to go. Hopefully that happens. But the president came out and he said, look, there was a moment of moral outrage. He said what he said, and he isn't walking it back. So all these people going, well, it makes him look weak because, he said it and then he walked it back. He didn't walk it back. There wasn't any of that. At least not that I saw. He said, look, I said what I said. I make no apologies. Make no apologies for calling for Putin's removal, he says. Expressing moral outrage. Not new policy. Biden said people like this shouldn't be ruling countries, but they do. It doesn't mean I can't express my outrage about it. And I agree with him. Now, the outrage machine on the right, boy, they just couldn't wait to pounce on this. Look how weak he looks. He's backpedaling on this. No, I think the fact that he came out and he said it, I think is okay. I would have stuck with it. I would have left it. I don't know that I would have come back and gone over it, but it is what it is. I think Biden has done a good job to this point. Could he do more? I think so. I would have liked to have seen more stuff, just more armaments. I would have liked to have seen more public display, but I understand why not. Now, the other big story today. This is the one that, again, not getting as much publicity as the slap heard round the world. Can you believe that? Oh my gosh. Wow. Evidently, I'm sorry. I can't get over how ridiculous we can be sometimes. That is what dominated all day. It's all I've heard about from everyone. Did you see the slap? It was a slap. For a guy who played Muhammad Ali in the movie, that was the best he could come up with? I mean, seriously, it could have at least been a backhand. Kind of masculine, kind of something. For a guy as jacked as Will Smith, at least if you're going to... I got to stop. Because I'm just going to lose my mind over it, because just so much effort into it, so much time and energy and ridiculousness. My email, never mind. Can you tell that I'm a little frustrated by the fact that we've wasted so much energy on nothing, and our priorities seem to be in the wrong direction? And we'll probably spend weeks, going over this. Was the apology good enough? Because Will Smith came out and apologized. Is it enough? Yeah, it's called spin control. He'll apologize without actually apologizing, because that's usually how this stuff goes. All right. John Eastman, one of Trump's lawyers, and the former guy, according to U.S. District Judge David Carter, likely committed multiple felonies and multiple federal crimes in their attempt to remain in power. Now, this is, again, nothing new. We've talked about this before, something that we've known for a while. You just now have a U.S. district judge writing this in his 44-page decision to allow the January 6th Commission to get some of the quote-unquote communication, the privileged communication between Trump and his lawyer. Now, what's interesting is they tried to say, well, attorney-client privilege, this is privilege because, when there's a crime going on, when you're criming, when you're breaking the law, you don't get to conspire with your attorney and then have it covered up. It's generally not how that works. I think that's, kind of what the judge here is saying. You don't get to crime and have it covered up by a judge. Now, what Judge Carter said was the illegality of the plan was obvious. He said our nation was founded on the peaceful transition of power, epitomized by George Washington laying down his sword to make way for democratic elections. Ignoring this history, President Trump vigorously campaigned for the vice president to single-handedly determine the results of the 2020 election. Now, in his view, two major felonies probably were committed. Obstruction of an official proceeding, fairly serious charge, pretty big one, one that's been brought against probably a couple hundred of the Capitol rioters, and conspiracy to defraud the United States, another pretty big one. Now, will Trump see these charges? Probably not. His decision was not on criminal charges, had none of that. But let me throw in, because, I'm someone who still believes Trump's never going to see the inside of a courtroom. He's never going to see the inside of a jail. He's not going to be held accountable, because it's just not what we do. But for those who want some hope, for those who need a little bit of hope in this kind of moment, I haven't heard a thing, not a whisper, out of Merrick Garland. The DOJ has been quiet as church mice. Nothing. Now, you remember during the former guy's term, the DOJ was like a sieve. They couldn't keep a secret. They couldn't keep, they couldn't keep a gossip column secret. These tight-lipped folks now kind of making me wonder, possible. Now, I go back to the January 6th Commission. What do they do with this information? Because this stuff supposedly lays it all out. There's 101 records that the congressional investigators are going to get that supposedly, lays out, Eastman's, moving towards the Electoral Count Act and all of the scheming that they were doing. You've seen the 2-page memo. You've seen all of this stuff. How does this play out? And do we eventually get to the primetime hearings? When do they start making this case? That's what I'm waiting for. Now, this week, Jared Kushner is supposed to testify before the select committee. Going to see how that goes. Also, Jenny Thomas Clarence Thomas's wife, may be requested to come in as well. I think that's important. So lots coming up. Lots of important stuff that I think could turn some heads. At least I hope so. I'd love to hear your thoughts. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com, or give us a call, 1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. If you're going to call about the slap, don't. I don't want to hear about the slap. Or if you do, you got to have a good point if you want it. 1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. Quick break, right back after this. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people. Come to talk.
From the steel mills of Pennsylvania to the auto factories of Michigan to the modern makers movement, manufacturing makes our nation great. I'm Scott Paul, president of the Alliance for American Manufacturing. We bring business and labor together to advocate for policies that everyone can agree on. Together, we can strengthen manufacturing and create good-paying American jobs. Help us keep it made in America.
Welcome back to The Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So, the great state of Mississippi. Evidently, Mississippi wants to be the poorest state in the country. Because over the weekend, what they did is they went and passed what is being called the largest tax cut ever passed in the state of Mississippi's history. The largest. Because, hey, rich people need more money. Because who needs schools and hospitals in a state that already has one of the poorest funding methods for your schools and your hospitals? And never mind those roads. You got dirt roads. Those are fine. They're just going to be messed up by hurricanes and stuff like that anyway. Who needs state investment when you can depend on the federal government? I mean, that's the only thing I can come up with is what it is. They're getting money from the federal government, so hey, let's slash and burn the state tax base. Now the claim is, and this is where the thought process, think about it. The thought process goes like this: they're losing population. So it's one of the states that, for some reason, people keep leaving. I don't know. Maybe crummy schools and bad infrastructure, hospitals and stuff like that. Maybe not a reason people want to flock to your state. Kind of thinking. Look, I've been to Birmingham. I love the people there. I love Birmingham. Had a wonderful time there. But you get out into some of the other places and it's questionable. And needing of investment and taking, what little resource you had and going, here, you have some. No, you have some. No, we'll make sure that the well-to-do continue to do well-to-do. And not investing in your state. Because what you're doing is you're taking away the money that you would use to invest. Is that going to really attract people to the state? Will this pay off? Now, we've seen these movies before. We've seen this, tax cuts it's going to create jobs. It's going to spur economic development. It's going to do all these wonderful things. It's going to create manna from heaven. And it never seems to work out the way that they sell it to us. It never seems to work out the way it's pitched. And all it really does is what it's always done. makes folks who have resources better off and those without resources worse off. It makes inequality worse, and the alligator jaws of inequality get wider and wider and wider, and you have that two Americas. This is not rocket science. This doesn't take a genius to figure out. And especially in a state like Mississippi that's a no rights at work state, you have real problems. So I look at this, and I just realized Birmingham is in Alabama, not in Mississippi. Did I say Birmingham? Because I was thinking about my friends in Birmingham. I was thinking actually Jackson. Jackson is a beautiful place. But I'm thinking about, the kind of investment that state needs and what's gone on there. And the sad reality is this kind of model has failed almost for working people. Now, again, this is supposed to make the wealthier wealthy. This is supposed to be that dividing, the worthy. This is supposed to benefit, who it's supposed to benefit. And average everyday working people, this is not supposed to be helpful. Now they're going to sell it as, well, we want folks who are going to, the working people. But it's not how that goes. It's not how it works. And sadly, we're in this weird kind of moment where it just doesn't go. I got 1 minute. Let's get Julie on the line. I got 1 minute, Julie. What's on your mind?
Well, I just want to inform you, Rick, because maybe you weren't aware of it, but the whole slap thing was actually the fault of the Democrats. Because after it happened, I put in the question to my phone, has Will Smith ever assaulted anyone before? And right away, some guy with a far-right show said, there go the Democrats again. And
that's great.
They're blaming it on the Democrats. I couldn't believe it. And then I asked a little more serious question. I wanted to know if he had mental health issues. And it did refer me back to some interviews that he did where Will Smith did admit that he was talking about having suicidal thoughts, and so did his wife, and some drug problems some time ago. But I thought that was really priceless to right away blame it on the Democrats.
I wish I would have thought of that. It's Hillary's fault. Darn it. How did I not think of that?
Well, it was in the basement of that pizza place, with the abusing. I guess by the way, Rick, did you know that there's 310 GOPers that have been accused and some found guilty of child abuse? Are you aware of that?
Yes.
Child sexual crimes?
Yeah. It's sad.
Yeah.
Sad
well,
stuff.
Anyway, thanks for listening. I just wanted to let you know that it's really the Democrats' fault.
I appreciate it. Now I'm informed. Thank you, Julie. Great stuff. I wish I had thought of that. Wow. Quick break. Right back after this. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show.
Here we are again. An overseas conflict hikes up our gas prices, and oil CEOs rake in record profits. It will keep happening until we break free from oil. Right now, we need Congress to ramp up production of clean, renewable energy sources. Energy that doesn't run out, so it costs families less. Energy that's made here in America. Energy that can't be manipulated by erratic dictators across the globe. Because real energy independence is built on clean energy.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So I've been following this Ginny Thomas thing, and over the weekend I was thinking about it. Had this been a Democrat, can you imagine the right-wing outrage factory and their chaos merchants nonstop pounding the drum here? I mean, can you imagine? Just think for a second. Let's say it was Hillary. Oh, let's just say. Can you imagine the outrage machine of Fox News, right-wing talk radio, all the cable, all of the online, all of that stuff, just in unison, all on message, all of the think tanks, all the state policy networks, everything, the whole machine, the whole outrage factory, all marching in lockstep on message. Can you imagine? It would be everywhere. And yet, what was today? It was the slap. That's all we heard today. Didn't hear much about Ginny Thomas, but it was the slap. In fact, it wasn't even the second story because, well, Trump and his probably committed 2 felonies. That got the second spot. Because, hey, the slap. At least there was a little bit of coverage of Ginny Thomas, and that's why I've asked my good friend Will Bunch to come give us some thoughts. He's got an article out on Ginny and the Supreme Court. His most recent op-ed, his most recent column, the Supreme Court has a giant legitimacy crisis, which means so does America. That's why I've asked Will Bunch to come give us some thoughts. He is a daily columnist over at the Philly Inquirer. Will, thanks for taking time for us.
Hey, Rick, thanks for having me back. I appreciate it.
So, not even. Am I wrong? Do you think had this been a Democrat, had this been Sonia Sotomayor's husband or one of the other, would this not be the outrage of the day instead of just some secondary story that maybe someone thought of?
Yeah, I mean the Republican judicial outrage machine is a well-oiled machine, right? I mean, it's been up and running for years, and it's got so many different, it's like a multinational corporation. It's got different departments now, right? It's got the the confirmation department, and you've got Mitch McConnell doing whatever it takes to ram through his justices onto the court, whether it's denying Obama that seat in 2016 or racing to get Amy Coney Barrett on the court in a matter of a few weeks. So there's that wing of it, and and you saw the Ketanji Brown Jackson confirmation hearings. I mean, you saw the levels they were willing to take it to try and take this woman down and sully her name. They play no holds barred, hardball, whatever you want to call it, to keep their edge in the judiciary. And not just the Supreme Court, but definitely at the Supreme Court. So yeah, so if there had been a chance for them to take out a Democratic justice and figure out some way to leverage a seat for themselves, even though they don't have any of the levers of government right now, but they would, try and get the Democrat out of there and try and keep the seat open for 3 years until the Trump restoration, or that's just the way they play, No. And that's part of this legitimacy crisis, what they've been willing to do to politicize the court to bend it to their will.
Yeah, I mean, I look at this and again, the fact that the strongest reaction that the Democrats could come up with, Clarence Thomas should recuse himself from cases on January 6th. I'm going, really, that's the strongest language you could come up with? Yeah,
I mean, look, there should be an impeachment investigation, right? I mean, investigation. We don't. It's true. We don't know all the facts. I mean, to me, the biggest hole, and it's going to be, if there were to be an investigation, which I'm not confident there will be, but if there were a real investigation of this, the big hole is trying to prove how hard Ginny actually lobbied her husband. I mean, which is, pillow talk, right? It's kind of hard to get it. It's hard to get at that stuff. So, but I look at this and I think of the famous scene in All the President's Men with Woodward and Bernstein talking about when you go to bed at night and it's all clear and you wake up in the morning and there's a few inches of snow on the ground. You didn't see it snow, but it snowed because there's snow on the ground. When you look at the fact that Clarence Thomas is not only voting on, ruling on cases around January 6th. I mean, he was the only dissenting vote when it came up to the court about turning over Trump's records, records that for all they know could include stuff about Ginny Thomas, right? So, to me, that's the 6 inches of snow on the ground. The fact that he wouldn't recruit. True, we can't prove that he and his wife discussed January 6th or the whole matter, but his ruling is suspicious as heck. And he should have recused himself. The standard for when and how Supreme Court justices recuse themselves in cases is so ridiculously, it's basically non-existent. It's not even, I was going to say it's light, but it barely exists really. So and the bottom line is the public has understandably lost faith in the Supreme Court. You can see it in the polling numbers. Last fall, the Gallup poll found the lowest number of trust, the lowest percentage of trust in the Supreme Court it's ever recorded. And this is why. And this was even before the Ginny Thomas stuff came out. It's their handling of cases like the abortion case. People, even though it's kind of a legal insider baseball thing, but people are starting to understand about this whole shadow docket, which is basically a procedure where they use these emergency orders where they don't have the court hearings, they don't have the deliberations. You don't even know the votes sometimes. They just issue this written order on an emergency basis to settle many more cases than's ever been done before. And it's just led to this significant loss of trust. And if you don't trust the Supreme Court, you don't have much of a democracy. Read a book like How Democracy Dies by these two Harvard political scientists, Ziblatt and I think the other guy authored it in a minute, Levitsky and Ziblatt. It's a great book, and in all these countries they've studied around the world where democracy is eroded, the Supreme Court is just a key pivot point, and we're losing the Supreme Court, and it's scary.
Yeah, but what ends up happening is you get into this. Well, you did this and you did this, and conservatives go back. Well, Bork, you Robert Bork, and then everyone devolves into this finger pointing. And what I find interesting is, and I have a lot of these conversations with conservatives, is you'll start back and forth, and you both agree on the problem. The problem, you both agree on it. It's you get hung up on, well, who you blame instead of fixing the problem. Everyone seems to be stuck on, well, you're at fault. No, you're at fault. How about we fix the problem instead? And that seems to me to be the place to start, maybe.
Yeah, one place. There's been a lot of talk about expanding the court. I don't know how realistic that is, although, as people have pointed out, the court is clearly overburdened in terms of its workload, and which gives you kind of a nonpartisan justification for perhaps expanding the court. But in reality, it would be seen as highly partisan if the Democrats do it, and that'll be, and people will think that is politicizing the court even more instead of depoliticizing it, which is what they'd like to see. I think one thing that could depoliticize the court, though, would be term limits instead of lifetime appointments for justices. If nothing else, the stakes over a lifetime appointment, it just becomes these life or death battles, because that if you lose, if you can't keep, Kavanaugh off the Supreme Court, he's going to be there for 40 years, right? And that just makes people fight harder. It might be a little bit different if you knew he was only going to be on there for 5 years or 10 years or whatever, and you had a more rotating cast of judges. There are definitely ways you could start to slowly rebuild trust in the court. Clearly a stronger code of ethics, so you wouldn't have situations like this Clarence and Ginny Thomas situation.
Yeah, because I got to tell you,
they don't have that now.
Yeah, I look at John Roberts and I wonder what his legacy is going to be. I look at this court and I wonder what the Roberts legacy is going to be.
Yeah.
With all of the chaos and the fact that this is a corporate court. There's a lot of talk of it's a conservative court, it's a theocratic court. No, this is a corporate court. Overwhelmingly, they side with corporate interests more than anything. And I think that is a big problem. But on the hot button social issues, they're also on the in my view, on the minority side of things.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right, Rick. I think what's interesting about the Roberts Court is, I mean, he was always, like you said, a pro corporate guy first and foremost. And I think in the early years, I guess he became justice when about 2005, 2006. Maybe in those first 10 years, you had a situation on the court where they really focused on their work in helping corporations, and sometimes it was a high profile case like Citizens United and big money in politics. A lot of times it was smaller stuff about unions and workers' rights that didn't get the attention that it should have gotten, but they had that. But that was always kind of mitigated, I think, in those early years by the fact that the court didn't go crazy on the social issues. They legalized gay marriage. They held back from the most extreme positions they could have taken on abortion or affirmative action or issues like that. And in the last 5 years, now that we have what I call the Trump court, with those 3 Trump appointments on the bench, that restraint is gone. And so now here comes abortion, here comes affirmative action, and people are terrified. These are views that go against the strong majority, not just the majority, but a strong majority of the American public.
No,
72% of the American public does not want the court to overturn Roe versus Wade. And yet the court is on the brink of overturning Roe versus Wade.
And I got to wonder how many people want Griswold overturned. And that came up last
week.
It
could be worse, right? Or, something that's of great interest to me is the, Sullivan versus the New York Times, the critical free speech case that involves, the right to basically publish articles criticizing public officials and have less concerns about being sued as long as the story is factually correct. I mean, Clarence Thomas and some of the other conservative justices on the court have hinted about overturning that. So there's a lot of havoc that could be wreaked in the next few years.
No, it's scary stuff. You're listening to the Rick Smith Show. We're here with Will Bunch. Will is a national columnist for the Philly Inquirer. You can check out the work that he does over at Inquirer.com. We'll get links out on social media. I can check that out. Also, if you got a thought, question, comment, something for Will, give us a call, 1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. I wanted to get your thoughts on the confirmation last week of Ketanji Brown Jackson and some of the stuff that came out of it. I thought she did a great job. I know the outrage factory went crazy over she couldn't define a woman. It's simple. It's in the dictionary. I thought she did a great job. I thought I thought she was clear-headed. I thought she was good with the answers. I did find Ben Sass's response to be quite interesting. That she's brilliant mind. She's got a great story. She's exceptional person. All the effusive with praise, but I still can't vote for her.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of shocking. I mean this, and some of the listeners who've been around for a few years know this, but you can go back, was like 30 years ago or 35 years ago, and within a few years of each other, Ruth Bader Ginsburg was confirmed on it by a 96-3 vote, 96-3, and here's a woman, with strong opinions, some of them controversial about feminism and whatnot, and yet the majority of Republicans voted for her. Just a couple of years before that, Justice Scalia, who maybe the most conservative justice we've had in our lifetimes, or at least the most outspoken, high-profile one, was confirmed unanimously. Every Democrat voted for Antonin Scalia, and I'm not saying they should all be unanimous. They shouldn't, I guess, but you look at somebody like Ketanji Brown Jackson, and she seems like somebody who should be a 96-3, right? I mean, she's just overwhelmingly qualified, and in this Ben Sass thing, that 30 years ago, Ben Sass, with that mindset, would have voted to confirm her. But now he can't. Now he says he can't. And why? It's because, they're so terrified of the wacko base of the Republican Party.
Yeah.
And you saw that in the questioning. I mean, so much of the questioning, like all this stuff around child pornography and whatnot, it was all, clearly influenced on some level or another by QAnon, which ties everything full circle, right? Because Ginny Thomas, who we just were talking about in the first segment, her crazy texts to Mark Meadows, Trump's chief of staff, were also influenced by QAnon, and QAnon is crazy. It's this crazy theory of, this secret cabal and these wild sex rings involving Democrats and Hollywood stars, but no Republicans somehow.
And pizza joints and but here's the weird thing, and this is the part that I keep coming back to. Ginny Thomas is somebody who's been in this world for a very long time. This to me is not news. She has been, in these groups and influential in this world for a very long time. It's not surprising to me whatsoever that she's this tuned into all of this stuff, because ultimately, and I said this a couple of days ago, the reason she's in the position that she's in, and she's got Mark Meadows' cell phone, and she's got all of these connections, is she's Clarence Thomas's wife. That's the reason. That's the connection. That's the power. That's what it is. And I got a ton of pushback. No, you're just being sexist. No, that's where the power is at. It's the court. It's that Supreme Court seat.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a couple things. I think we're what's the expression, defining deviancy down or whatever. It's the baseline in the Republican Party just keeps sinking lower and lower. And so even people who started out seeming as conservatives, but grounded conservatives or whatever you want to call it, not off the deep end, like a Ginny Thomas, these people are just getting immersed in this world, and U.S. senators are picking up on it. And, look, it's one thing to be involved in conservative causes, but Ginny Thomas was involved in an insurrection trying to prevent the peaceful transfer of power of the presidency in the United States. I mean, for all this country's flaws, and of course we did have that one incident in 1861, the Civil War, but basically beyond that, we've always had a peaceful transfer of power. Nobody said, oh my gosh, LBJ is never going to turn the White House over to Richard Nixon. It wasn't even something we thought about as a possibility. And now, not only did we witness this insurrection in 2020 and 2021, but we have this wave coming in 2024 of these new laws, these new Secretary of States that are going to be elected in some of these deeply Republican states who think the 2020 election was stolen. You're going to have all these laws that are going to give state legislators and legislatures in states like Georgia, power to override Democratic counties and their vote counting. I mean, it's just things we never thought would happen in this country.
It is going to be an interesting year, and look, it's just the precursor to what 2024 is going to be like, and that's why I am very, very concerned. But Will, I appreciate the time. Great stuff as always. Incredible work. Hope folks will take a look at it. We'll get links out on social media, Inquirer.com. Thanks so much, man.
Hey, thanks for having me. It was great. Thanks.
Good stuff. Our good friend Will Bunch. Again, make sure you check out the work that he does over at the Philly Inquirer, where he is a national columnist. Let's take a quick break. Right back with your thoughts. 1-866-416-RICK. 1-866-416-7425. This is The Rick Smith Show for working people of the dawn.
For 240 years, our union endured. But it's under challenge like never before.
We're engaged anew in a struggle between democracy and autocracy.
Can we save democracy? overcome authoritarian movements at home and abroad, come together to ensure the government of the people, by the people, for the people endures, we say we can.
Democracy will and must prevail.
Play your part by joining the Union. The Union gives Americans the tools to mobilize friends and neighbors, to amplify our voices, organize for democracy, and defeat Trumpists and authoritarians from the White House to the City Council. It matches the skills of volunteers and activists with campaigns and causes, work that must be done to protect democracy. Lincoln believed it was the sacred duty of every president to preserve the Union at all costs. We believe it's the sacred duty of every American.
Now it's up to all of us, to we the people.
Because together we will win. America will endure. The Union, all in.
You're listening to The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.
Yeah, I got to tell you, as I said, if this were a Democrat, this would be the biggest story ever. The fact that she has been eyeball deep in all of these right-wing groups and look, just crazy into it. And this QAnon stuff is just out there. Let's go to the phone lines. Got Alice on line one. Alice, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I can't complain. What's on your mind?
Well, you were saying about QAnon and, of course, Jenny Thomas. But when I graduated from university back in 1985, and I've told you before, I have a degree in psychology and in sociology. But the average IQ in 1985 in the United States was 100 to 110, okay? And then 20 years ago, we dropped down, and the average IQ was 105 to 95. And I just read an article 2 days ago that the IQ in the United States has dropped down, with the average IQ being 97.
Wow.
Now, I don't know if my thoughts on this are the educational level, because we have all these people that are now doing the homeschooling and the religious schools and whatnot. And when it comes to IQ, a lot of that has to do with your cognitive skills, what you've been taught, how to think critically. And it's no wonder that we have all these people falling into this QAnon thing, because nobody has any critical thinking skills anymore.
That's an excellent point. No, you're not wrong there. And look, some of the people that I know that do the homeschooling, I don't want them training hamsters, let alone children. So what you're saying is probably spot on. Look, I just thought it was something in the water. Maybe it was the lead chips we ate as a kid, but it quite frankly, you're probably more spot on than I am.
Well, if you look, and it's also the subjects, if you look back to...
Yep, I gotta take a break here.
Okay.
Sorry, Alice.
Talk to you later.
Darn clock. Thanks, Alice. Appreciate it. But I don't think she's wrong. If you watch the movie Idiocracy, we're heading towards that every day, speeding toward it like a locomotive. Sad stuff. Quick break, right back. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show.
It takes a lot to raise a family. A good job, a good salary, and some patience. A lot of people my age are drowning in college debt, but I chose a different path. I'm a member of the IBEW, the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. I work hard for my job, and I love what I do. I had a lot of choices for my future, but I made the best choice for my family. IBEW, the right choice.
The best way to strengthen America's economy? How about investing in America's fastest growing industry? Clean energy. It means millions of jobs that pay well and can't be outsourced. And lower utility costs for families. Congress, let's get it done.
So I have never heard of Laura Logan. I'm not a current Fox News viewer, but I now have to look up who Laura Logan is. Evidently, she said that the theory of evolution is the result of a wealthy Jewish family paying Charles Darwin to devise an explanation for what gave rise to humanity. What? My first thought is, really, we're going to blame it all on the Jews again? Is this where we're going? And yeah, evidently. And am I surprised? Fox News, the Fox channel? Am I, or Fox Nation? I'm sorry. This isn't even Fox News. This is Fox Nation. Am I surprised? No, actually, no, I'm not. Not even really surprised a little bit. Nor should I be. Speaking of not surprised, evidently, the trucker convoy. Have you been following the big trucker convoy? This has been brilliant. You just amazing. You've got a bunch of people who evidently don't have jobs or don't need income or have no lives, who for 3 weeks have just been driving around D.C., playing in traffic, beeping their horns, wetting themselves. I guess, beating up a kid taking his bike, having their whole convoy upended by a guy who riding a bicycle. Evidently, they have decided that they're leaving DC. They're calling the DC part of it quits after accomplishing absolutely nothing. And evidently, they're driving back to California, which is weird because why? Now, I guess what they're going to do is the plan is they're going to go back and they're going to protest something out there because they're not happy with something out there. Now, understand, they did have some accomplishments. They did meet with Ted Cruz, and they did get to take Ted Cruz for a ride, which I'm sure was, like the highlight of Ted Cruz's day. But no cute picture like the one with Trump. Have you ever seen the picture of Trump in the truck? You got that goofy looking, like he's driving. I didn't see one of those. Ron Johnson, I guess, met with them, the senator from Wisconsin. And I guess a couple of House Republicans also met with them, but they never, I guess, didn't get any Democratic lawmakers to meet with them. And I don't think that I don't even know if they tried, to be honest. But I look at the amount of money wasted. And according to reports, there was about $2 million that was raised, which means a lot of stupid people sent money to these people. Just to drive around D.C., on the outside of D.C., not actually inside. Drive around the outside, the Beltway, and honk their horns and I guess, cause headaches for people. And there wasn't enough of them from what I understand, to cause any real problems. So they were just, like a sideshow. Kind of an attraction, kind of not. And I hate to, my problem is I hate to diminish this, because it was an attempt at organizing that went really, really bad. And I fear this is, I shouldn't say I fear. I think at some point you're going to find out there's a lot of grift in here. Because this attracts the wrong people. Because the trucking industry really needs organizing. It really needs someone who's going to say, look, conditions are terrible, wages aren't great, treatment is bad. There's so many things that needs to happen to make that a living job, a living wage with living conditions again. And these idiots weren't it. These idiots were, well, idiots. But good luck going back to California. Hope you don't get lost. Hope you find your way back to California. That's the best I can hope for. Anyway, if you missed any of today's program, make sure you download the podcast. Maybe you've heard, but we have a podcast, and you can download it. You can share it with your friends, coworkers, neighbors. Always there. iTunes, the iHeart, everywhere you can get a podcast, it is there. Also, love to hear your thoughts. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Thanks so much for being here. We'll see you back here next time.
You've been listening to The Rick Smith Show. Email Rick at rick@thericksmithshow.com. Until next time, this has been The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.